This is the DRF Players Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Thomas Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast special video stream live edition, though it will be available after the fact in all the usual channels. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel, back with you at the DRF offices in New York in the shadow of the Chrysler Building for this one, which I might be show 306, and I have to check, but it is in fact February 2nd, Groundhog Day, 2018. Very happy to be with you, happy to be back in the DRF studios, happy to be joined via the magic of the internet. He's calling in from the planet Texas. I don't know what's going on with the lighting down there in the planet Texas.
Look, it's a long story, but I'm at the New Braunfels Public Library in a study room that they have here. Had to stay close to Austin School today, so here I am. If I say anything really important, I'll just move the light close to my face. So
That voice you hear, of course, it belongs to the People's Champ. He's Jonathan Kinchin. JK, what's up?
Oh, nothing much, man. Looking forward to it. A lot of fun. It looks like the qualifiers are going to start in about 19 minutes, or maybe my clock's not the final qualifier 19 minutes. 161 people so far. So
wow.
So should send a few more to the big show tomorrow. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a 1 in 26 event, and I want to encourage people who are watching this live, who maybe we're only going to be on the air until 4 Eastern today. The contest will go longer than that, but we will be monitoring the contest for the first part of the show for a little fun, see how it's going. And you can see there, if you click on the description, producer Craig, oh, that works too, showing the races first. You can take a look. We've got a steady diet of Gulfstream and Oaklawn and Santa Anita for this afternoon. And then if we click on the description, we can take a look. It's $225 to enter, and 1 in 26 will win a $5,000 seat to the World Championship of Handicapping. This is your last chance to qualify. It's been a week of last chances in different formats. This is actually the first time one can win a WCH seat for less than $580. I'm talking about directly. Of course, you can feed in for as little as 11 or sometimes even free and start your journey to the World Championship of Handicapping. But in terms of a direct win-in, this is the first and only opportunity to do so for $226. And the prize they're playing for, you see it on the screen now. We've got this prize pool. It's estimated at $500,000 now. Could swell up to $1 million based on full participation. But really, here's what you need to know. There is 0% takeout in this event. All the money the players put up will get awarded back to them. It's the best opportunity in the history of online handicapping contests. It's going to have the biggest purse, the biggest prize to first. There is a lot going on. Players are always correctly talking about the perils of high takeout and how difficult it is for racing and unhealthy it is for racing to have such a high takeout, high cost to the bettors. Here's an opportunity to play for 0 takeout. This is exactly the kind of thing players have been saying they want and know they need for horse racing to survive. Support the tournament is what I'm trying to say. If you're on the fence, buy in. And if that $5,000 is a little too rich for your blood and you're listening live, go ahead and get yourself involved in this last chance. What a great story that would be. Pete browbeat me to get into the last chance, and then I won $150,000 in the big game. How cool would that be? It's going to be very fun this weekend. A lot of what we're going to be doing on this show, JK, is talking about the World Championship of Handicapping. We'll also be talking about some of the races that are specifically part of it, answering some questions along the way. What's your opinion, though, of this $225 format that folks have 15 minutes to sign up for, as opposed to the usual formats we've been running?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. You know, I think that when the WCH kind of started its qualifiers, we wanted to avoid the common ratio that I think are really tough on horse players: the 1 in 65, the 1 in 55, the 1 in, and so on and so forth. It's tough. 1 in 26 is obviously a lot more obtainable. It's a lot easier to have a day where you can be better than 25 other guys. It's tough to have a day where you're better than 60 other guys. But I think that my personal favorite is what I think so many people qualified with, is that 1 in 10. Really gives you an opportunity to kind of hone in, pick winners, not so much worry about the cap horses or the bombs and chasing all of those types. You can just play like a normal day at the racetrack and try to pick winners. So I appreciate those lower ratios, but 1 in 26 is well within my realm of acceptable. So it should be fun if you're interested in playing tomorrow and you're planning on paying the 5,000. Just go ahead and make that investment 5,225, and maybe you can get in for $225.
I like that attitude. That's very good. Now, a strict math guy might say, wait a second, okay, I'm going to play in a round 1 feeder where 1 in 7 advance, and then I'm going to play in a 1 in 10 game. Doesn't that make the chance 1 in 70? Isn't that similar to those other ratios you're describing? Why is it, I agree with you, but just to play devil's advocate for a second, why is it difficult? Why is it better to have these low ratios we've been featuring all year on tournaments.drf.com?
Oh, if you're going to ask me a math question, let me get Eric Bylick or Marshall Graham on the phone real fast. You lost me with the math. No, I get that. I mean, of course, but I think the ability to get in at a lower dollar amount, and yes, you have to have 2 good days, but you have to have 2 good days. I'd rather have 2 good days than 1 remarkable day. It's harder to have that 1 remarkable day, and I think that's what it takes when you get up into those 60 ratios, and even the 25s. You got to have a pretty darn good day to be successful in a 1 in 26. But in a 1 in 7, 1 in 10, a couple of good days in a row, next thing you know, you're logging on Saturday morning with a $5,000 entry.
The other reason I like it, JK, is the type of horses that you're allowed to, not allowed, but essentially have the ability to effectively play and not play. When you're playing in a 1 in 70 event, for example, or a 1 in 65 event, necessarily for that event to go, you're playing against 64 other people. Some senseless horse comes in, somebody's going to have that senseless horse. When you're playing in a low ratio format, very often the crazy horse isn't hit, and if the crazy horse does get hit in the 1 in 10 or 1 in 7 format, you know at least somebody liked that horse and wasn't just reaching because of the price on the board. True or false?
Absolutely. It doesn't hurt nearly as bad. Like you said, you play in a today, for example, you play in a 170-person contest, and there is a 20-to-1 shot. Someone is going to have it. It's mathematically guaranteed. However, if you play in a 20-man tournament, a 40-guy tournament, or whatever, it's not always guaranteed. You can sometimes dodge those bullets, and I appreciate those types of situations because I don't usually have those types of horses.
We've had a whole lot of questions come in about the WCH format. I've referred a lot of people to my articles, which can be found at drf.com. Maybe the easiest way to find them is just go to the tournament site, tournaments.drf.com, and select the tournament news drop-down. But I think we should at least do a quick rules review here on how the WCH is going to work. The first question that came in, JK, and I'll let you answer this one because I feel like I've been answering it all year. How do the cut lines work?
Yeah, from what I understand, it's on Saturday. At the end of the day of the 15 races on Saturday, half of the field is going to be eliminated. Half of the field will advance until Sunday morning to round 2, which is the first half of Sunday. And then after the first half of Sunday is run, they'll narrow it down again. They'll cut the field in half again, and then those remaining players will play in round 3, which is the second half of Sunday. So if we start with 200, when you wake up on Sunday morning, we'll have 100 players left, and then after the break in the middle of the day, we'll end with 50 going for the final prizes.
If you had to guess, how many entries do you think this tournament's going to get?
I don't know. I've been playing in contests for quite a long time, and I think one of the things that's tricky is we're all horse players, we're all gamblers, and we like to keep our money in our pocket as long as we possibly can. So the people that haven't qualified, I think that there's going to be an influx of people that are going to play tomorrow, that are going to hop in tomorrow. The other thing is that when a lot of us, obviously we're all adults, you have life that's going to come up, and so you don't want to put the $5,000 in on Thursday, and then life happens on Saturday and you can't participate. You kind of want to wait to the last second. I think there'll be a big influx of people tomorrow. I think getting above 130, 140, 150 shouldn't be a problem at all. And I wouldn't be shocked if it sold out at 200. Obviously, where we land on the calendar is a little bit challenging for people with the Super Bowl and da-da-da-da. But I think that the opportunity is one that will get people to come running late, and then you got to think 160 guys. This is the eBay theory. I have an eBay theory. 160 guys are playing in the qualifier today, so they have their Saturdays open. That's why they're playing today. If you can get 25% of those people to sign up, now we're going in the right direction.
Absolutely. The stat I cited in my preview article, which you can read on DRF.com or in the print edition of the Saturday paper, at a comparable point in the week before, the Pegasus contest and the World Championship of Handicapping each had 80 entries. And Pegasus ended up on, I think, 135 or 136. So, I mean, if we can get there, that purse is pretty much going to be going through the roof from the already impressive place it is now. And I think that's a reasonable expectation, because even though, as you point out, it's a little bit tricky on the calendar with having the big old Pegasus last week, of course, the NHC out in Vegas next weekend, and it is Super Bowl weekend. The racing schedule dovetails nicely with the Super Bowl itself. It's not like that you're going to be, betting races during halftime. Everything will be wrapped before kickoff. And you've got the opportunity to bet on some really interesting racing on Saturday. And I'm going to ask producer Craig, I just received word that all the races for the World Championship of Handicapping are now accessible. If you go to tournaments.drf.com, and you select the races drop down, we can take a look, Craig, if you're hearing me there. Yeah, there we go. And we can show that looks like it's for the last chance still. So if we can go to look at the World Championship of Handicapping itself, which should be at the bottom of that page that you're on, if you just scroll down, and we can see what we're dealing with there. And yes, you can see all 3 rounds. We've got the racing from Gulfstream. We've got the 3 stakes that we're going to be talking about a little bit later in the show. 3 stakes from Santa Anita as well, and then filling in with other Gulfstream, Santa Anita, as well as Oaklawn. And then here we go. The second day, let's hold it up at the top there for a second, Craig, so I can see what time the festivities begin. Looks like that first segment, 2:35 it begins. It is a 7-race segment, and that will conclude, if you just scroll down a little bit there, Craig, at 3:59. And then if you go back up to the top and select round 3, about a half an hour break, and then things will kick back off with the 6th at Oaklawn. Once again, a nice mix of Oaklawn and Gulfstream and Santa Anita. And it looks like the last race, is that the last race that's showing there? No, there's one more. Santa Anita's 9th, 6 o'clock, still gives you, I guess, about a half an hour before kickoff. Folks wanting to check this out in great detail, go to tournaments.drf.com, and you can see for yourself. You can watch that number of players grow, as I suspect it will. Looks like we'll be putting 4 or 5 in straight away here via the last chance, and then folks are going to continue to participate along the way. We've got some other questions about the WCH. This one's for you, JK, and I'm curious myself. I know you're a Shakespeare fan, and if you thought Hamlet was confused about what to do about Claudius, it's nothing compared to how confused JK has been about whether or not he's playing in this World Championship of Handicapping. Do you have a final decision?
I don't. I'm working on that decision. I was out of town last weekend, out of town next weekend. Got the little guy. Just depends on what degree of deadbeat dad I'm interested in doing. That's going to be the deciding factor. No, all jokes aside, I'm going to decide. I wanted to look at the races and then decide how I wanted to go about it. If I do play, there's a chance that, like I said, I do have my son tomorrow, so I might pick and pray it. But we'll see. There's a good chance that I'll be involved.
I think that's an interesting notion. Even if it's a good situation financially, which clearly this is, I'd also think in your case, I think you're better at mythical money formats than a lot of other players, based on just all the success you've had online and in other tournaments. But if your specific opinion doesn't line up with this set of races, you know, you can't just rely on what you've done in the past. And especially if you're in a childcare situation, as I'm sure a lot of people out there listening will be, if you can get yourself in a spot where your opinions are such that you can essentially play Saturday almost like an all-in, just pick the horses you like, knowing really the goal here is to advance to day 2, to finish in the top half of the field. I would think if you have the right opinion, you wouldn't be doing yourself that much of a disservice strategically to just play this as an all-in and put the horses in you like. I mean, do you think, would that put you behind the 8 ball, or do you think that would work?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think, you know, I think that if you kind of all end it, you could still get to the next day and then go on with it. And look, no one's feeling sorry for me or you for our issues. I know a guy who is going to a funeral tomorrow who is still probably going to play. It's tough.
I'm sure I could probably guess amongst our friends who that might be. Just don't, you know, at the most somber part of the service, don't be punching in, you know, don't be changing your pick on the phone. To that person, I say definitely all in. Check the score when you get home. We don't need any. We don't need any.
You don't want there to be like someone. Yeah, you don't want them to say like, you know, like to say amen, and then he's like, you know, he's watching on his phone. Sorry, it's not funny. It's really not funny.
Terrible. We've turned a funeral into a laughing matter. Only on the DRF Players podcast, folks. So, JK, on Tuesday's show, it was great. We had Craig Milkowski. We talked a lot about speed figures. We alluded a little bit to some stuff that we've gotten a few questions about. First of all, we were joking around about some of your aggressiveness in dealing with a certain somebody on Twitter. But we'll put that aside for a moment, and let's talk about the issue behind the issue. You know, I got the impression that some individual was questioning the idea that one might ever have financial backing for a wager they made. Was that the crux of the biscuit here? Yeah,
I guess I don't really understand. I mean, you know, I assume that was the point. Maybe it was suggesting that the only reason I hit it is because I had you know, financial backing to hit it. But it wasn't about financial backing. It was about a group of people that were all hanging out, and I was lucky enough to be the one that got to construct the ticket. And it was probably my fault. I probably shouldn't have put investors. I probably should have put partners, because that's what they were. Investors to me is like, to a certain extent, is that like I got like a little extra piece without actually putting in the equity. Like I get a 10% bonus on if we win because I built the ticket. That's not how it worked. Whatever dollar you put in represented your dollar amount of the total bet, and then when we won, we split it up equally based on the equity that you had of the ticket. So, I don't know. I think the frustration and the irony probably came. The frustration was, it was ironic that the person questioning me like has like their own like tout site, which I thought was probably a little bit funny.
There it is, the very tweet, Johnny on the spot. Producer Craig showing it. What I liked about what you did, I mean, I agree, like as a guy who edited books for many years and still fancies himself a bit of an editor, I would have edited the word investors. Frankly, JK, it just sounds a little self-important, which is why I took a little bit of a shot at you about it. But I like that this wasn't just a ticket flash. By showing the ticket maker ticket, I think you give a little bit of insight into how one might play a bet like this, DRF ticket maker being an amazing tool. And I thought there was a lot to learn looking at it. I mean, I feel like just for example, normally I would see a ticket where you had 8 horses treated exactly the same in the last leg, and I might question that as not being like reflective enough of an opinion. But, and we talked about this a little the other day, given the deliberately chaotic nature of the race that was chosen, and given the fact that when you're in a positive expectation, like a Rainbow Six force out, where one of those rare opportunities in racing where more money is going to be going out of the pool than is coming in. It's more about making sure you hit it than it is betting your opinion in the exact efficient way. Would you concur with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit of a storytelling and a little bit more background on how the bet came about and why I didn't have more B horses is obviously the more B horses that you have, the more ticket combinations that you have. I think that one was like, I don't remember, I wasn't looking at it. I think it was like maybe 15 tickets altogether. The thing is that, it was after the Pegasus. We were obviously out that night, a little bit late. The next morning, people started texting, "Are we going to play this pick six? Are we going to play this pick six?" I was not anticipating playing. I showed up to the track at 1 o'clock. The race started at 3, and it all was built from there. The problem is we did not have $4,200 in cash on us so that we could build the ticket and go bet it on track. So what we had to do is we had to employ all of the people who had ADWs and say, okay, you're going to put in $800, then you need to put that $800 in your ADW, and you need to bet these bets. And then we'll bet these, and so we just didn't have enough time to make it any more efficient than that. So it was a last minute thing that we kind of threw together. Not like the tournament guy who says he never handicaps, not that guy that we all might know about. But we worked hard at it, but it was a kind of a last minute deal where we decided we were actually going to do it.
Kind of like an Ocean's 11 style caper, but with idiots.
Same idea, exactly. Same thing.
Everybody plays their role.
Yeah, but the most fun part after was the amount of people that we would not stop FaceTiming until they answered. You,
I was on that
Matt
list.
Bernier, Mike Joyce from TVG. Everyone. We just kept FaceTiming people, and then we were doing the Justin Bieber thing where you hold the cash like you're talking on the phone.
Not obnoxious at all, JK. Not obnoxious at all. And here,
We had fun.
Meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I see all these partners. What about your old friend Pete? What about Eric Bialik? He's sitting downstairs at Gulfstream in the same building. We don't get a call to be part of this ticket. And meanwhile, you're sending out your ticket flash. You're bragging about your investors. What about us, man?
Yeah, I'm a bad friend. I woke up. I'm telling you, I woke up at 9. I ate breakfast. I grabbed a coffee. I went to the spa and sat in the steam room for 2 hours trying to get the poison out. And and I ate lunch. It was a last minute thing. Look, I've drug you into a lot of losing tickets, so.
Drinks are on you in Las Vegas. That's all I'm saying. I'm still waiting for my bottle of scotch for the no-show a couple of months ago. We now might make it a double.
Deal.
Okay, fair enough. All right, some other questions about the tournament. Here's one that I'll take on. Oh, I should also say we're about 3 minutes out now. If you are thinking, if you're in a position to potentially play in this last chance World Championship of Handicapping qualifier, do not delay any further or you will get shut out. You could still, the site's easy enough to use. You could open an account and get your money deposited and still just get in, or if you lose the photo, it'll be a tough one. So if you're thinking about it, go ahead and get in there. If you're thinking about playing in the regular games today on DRF tournaments, you've got a little bit more time. We've got an array of opportunities, Horseplayer World Series feeders. We've got all kinds of credit builders, matchup contests, lots of opportunities still on the DRF tournaments website. So if you're not feeling going in for the 225 and you need another minute, go on there and scroll around tournaments.drf.com. You're sure to find a tournament option that's right for you. And this question, a little bit timely and appropriate to ask the two of us, given how much I covered the story of the events of this year's Breeders' Cup, and of course Jonathan famously or infamously being part of the group that wrote the letter questioning some of the goings-on there. What efforts are being taken at the WCH regarding the prevention of collusion? And I'll say there's a special rule that I actually had a hand in writing that makes it very clear what type of things are legal. It's legal to have a husband and wife play. It's legal to have brothers play, and spells out what isn't allowed. And specifically what isn't allowed is the coordination of entries among horse players. Obviously, if you're allowed 3 entries in the tournament and you can do on your own entries, you can't collude with yourself. If you want to play all the same horses up to a certain point and then split, you can do that. Whatever the case may be, you're good on your own entries. But you can't have your friend or even your normal betting partner and do the same techniques without being subject to disqualification. For example, if you had half of the bets the same among 2 two horse players, and then in their strongest opinions, and then separated in the other races. That's not going to fly at the World Championship of Handicapping. I think it's great. Obviously, I had a hand in writing it. I think it's great, though, for a tournament to try to spell out exactly what you can and cannot do. And to not do so, I think, risks just further confusion and muddying of the waters in a way that I don't believe is healthy for the whole tournament landscape. Another thing I'll point out about online contests and the WCH, specifically, all the picks available for the public to see. So folks can be taking a look at this in real time and seeing what other people are playing. So in the unlikely event that there is some funny business, it can be ferreted out. If the current rules don't cover it, which I think they probably would, but if for some reason they don't, something that could be legislated against in the rules in the future. I'm encouraged. I'm feeling very good about the chances of a good, clean game being run this weekend at DRF tournaments. What do you think of the way the WCH is handling this collusion business and how it fits in with the overall vibes in the tournament world?
Well, I mean, I think what we talked about on the podcast right after the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge was that the $2 mythical win place contests are not the same. They don't present the same problem, the same issue that the live money contests do, because mathematically, with enough entries, you can almost guarantee yourself something in a live money contest. In a mythical $2 win place, you can't guarantee yourself anything. However, you can gain a significant advantage on other players, and that's what I think those rules are going to do a good job of limiting from happening. And then obviously the daily racing form will take a serious stand when it comes to auditing the tournament to make sure that everything's on the up and up. But one of the other great parts of the plays being public, like you mentioned, is that unfortunately by nature sometimes horse players can be good big complainers, and if someone's doing funny business, your peers will see you doing that and bring it to the attention, and hopefully we'll get it taken care of. The tournaments have been the biggest area of growth in a sport that has a lot of issues. If you look at where tournaments have gone from 10 years ago to where they are now, it's something that we need to try to preserve and make sure that it's not a group of guys that are taking advantage of rules and taking advantage of newcomers and taking advantages of people that are trying to follow the rules. And so I'm glad the DRF took some extra steps in making sure that these rules were written in a way that they can be enforced and gave some clear examples, and I'm confident that they'll do the right thing in making sure that this tournament is run clean and full of integrity.
Yeah, you were looking at it from the player side. I'd say it's really the responsibility of the people running the tournaments to make those rules clear, to enforce those rules the way they are written. I mean, all tournament players, a lot of horse players, it's a game about taking and finding small edges. And if a tournament director isn't clear about what those rules are, I almost want to say you can hardly blame the players for trying to exploit rules to their advantage. It may not be in the spirit of the rules. We may not like to admit that, that's part of the nature of a lot of people who gamble, especially people who gamble for a living. So I definitely think that this is a step in the right direction, and I believe that there's aspects of it that could be 100% applied to live bankroll play, starting with that idea of publishing the plays. What do you think about that? Do you think that's something that could work in those other formats? Absolutely.
I'm a proponent for that. I think that I do some pretty creative and well thought out things when I'm playing in live contests, but I think that the integrity of it is more important than my proprietary ideas, right? It's like those proprietary ideas won't be worth anything if we can't get the stink off of a live contest and get those going back in the right direction. So it is what it is. It's a little bit of a sacrifice, but I think it's for the greater good.
Yeah, you're referring to the idea that you might be giving up your edge by somebody seeing your plays. I could see a player objecting on those grounds, but to that player I would say there's probably going to be plenty of other contests you could play in, or you can always go see the guy with the vest up at the window and bet your money that way.
Go downstairs. There's a guy down there with like you said, with a vest on, and there's a little old lady in line in front of you, and you can go down there, and when she gets out of the way, you can bet your $10,000 you were going to bet in the contest, and you can bet it on that one horse that happens to be running in the turf that can't lose if you really want.
Lots of that statement might take a little while to unpack, but that's okay. Couple more questions about the cut lines. This one is less to do with how the cut line works and more about how it affects strategy. If you do end up, if Hamlet does end up deciding to participate in the WCH, are you willing to give away what you're thinking, what your thought process is about how the cut line changes strategy potentially?
Yeah, I think it's between a rock and a hard place, right? It's like if you take those, because we've seen it in the NHC before. There's that cut line, right? So it's like, do I go to just make the cut line, or do I go for the horse that could win me the whole thing? And you have to find that happy medium. You can't just, in my opinion, you can't just try to make the cut. Because then what if you don't find the horses that can propel you to the win on Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon? You have to take what you're given. And if you can find the right races, well, this is a mandatory situation, so the races are already determined for you. You just have to pick winners, and don't get caught up in all the jazz. It's one of the reasons I'm feeling motivated more, despite my circumstances, to play, is because like that's how I like to play. I like to just be able to, if I like a 6-5 shot, I want to play them. It's harder to do that in an optional setting.
Yeah, what I like about it is I just feel like it makes you much more inclined to play the horse you like than to just quote unquote, bomb away or stab away, because you've got to get to those two benchmarks along the way. I feel like it's going to be very difficult to play and succeed when you're just reaching for price horses because of the price they are. There's too much to be gained by getting those mid-price horses and being able to inch along. At the same time, if it's in your gambling personality to play those longer prices, I don't think it hurts you at all. Because in a way, if a lot of people have the mentality that you and I were describing, JK, then those cappers are going to be worth more. But I'm okay with the capper being worth more as long as the person actually has to pick that horse. Now, I'm sure you're going to see in this tournament at least one, speaking of infamous people in the contest world, there'll be one of them out there who's going to probably have 3 entries and probably going to look to just play, I'm going to just guess, look to play long shots, figuring, getting that 1 entry up, getting that 1 price might have a bit of an outsized value. But then once you make the 1 cut line with one of those 3, then you're all of a sudden got to go back to something resembling a little bit more traditional handicapping and traditional game theory betting in contests, and I feel like that edge goes away. So if somebody's willing to put up 3 times the prize money and that's the big edge they're getting, like as another player, I'd be okay with it. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, it happens to me all the time when I play in matchup situations. There's guys that pick a lot of bombs, and I need to go ahead and get that word out of my head because I'm going to start traveling pretty soon. I remember the last time I almost got arrested at the airport when I was telling you.
The podcast in the TSA line talking about bombs.
Yeah,
it's no way to make friends.
But I think a lot of guys will, if someone was allowed to pick 20, 15 to 1 shot, 15, 20 to 1 shots, they have to hit one of them. And even if they hit one of them, it's still obtainable if I'm playing in a more controlled way with 15 plays to get to $60 without having that cap horse. And I prefer the other method rather than out of 15 plays, a lot of guys are just hoping for 2 cap horses. I just don't find cap horses like that.
Well, right. A lot of that gets down to your gambling personality. This tournament seems to me to be suited to yours. Hopefully, we'll see your name among the entrants for tomorrow. We have 6 new entrants based on the contest that just happened. Let's see if everything is final here, and we can see who they are. Oh, no. What am I talking about? The contest just started. That was a strange brain freeze. We will be sending 6 people. We will not be able to see who they are. We will be able to show you the people who had that first winner, among them Garrett Skiba, lots regular listener to the show and lots of live bankroll tournament success, looking to win his way in. And we can scroll down there and see how many of this field got the 980. Leo, Michael Bachok, lots of familiar names. Nick Fazzolari. This is off to a very good start here with
the man in black. The man in black.
The man in black is there. I didn't see him.
there. You got $4. He's got $4.
Well, okay. This is this segue has nothing to do with the fact that you just mentioned the man in black. I'm going to point that out. But I did receive a complaint, JK, that in yesterday's last chance of the Grade 1 qualifiers, those 580 events, we ended up on 29 entries. And had we gotten 30 entries, we would have been able to give away 3 seats to the big tournament. And somebody asked me why, you know, they did the takeout math. DRF still would have been making a good amount of money awarding that extra seat, and they questioned why DRF didn't award it, why they left it, why they did 9 seats. The money still went back, the equivalent in the form of breakage, which is site credit, but why we didn't round up and offer the 3rd seat. Do you know the story?
I don't know the story. I know that you know, various websites handle it in different ways. I just think that you have to pick a rule that's going to work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, no matter what the contest is, and then you just stick with it. If it starts getting confusing, or you know, you get a bump here, you don't get a bump there, you do get a bump here, you don't get one there, it just gets very convoluted. And if as long as it's black and white, I'm good with it. Everyone knows the rules when you start. Would it have been nice? Yeah, I'm sure it'd be nice, but there's a lot of things that you know. There's a lot. Maybe the guy that got 9th or the kind of the first guy out was glad to get that breakage back.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that, because that's actually what it has to do with. Consistency is key in these matters, and I recall there being, let's just call it an equivalent instance, where the player who ran, it was a situation where the prizes got rounded up, and the player who ran 4th complained vehemently because had they awarded it with breakage, you know, then it would have paid, some money would have been paid down to 5th, even though the overall effective takeout of the tournament would have gone up and would be a worse thing for players. This player would have been in a worse case. Pointed out what you just said, basically, about like it just has to be consistent every single time, and the decision was made. To adhere to a strict policy of pay out exactly what the money would be and not get into the rounding business. It's tough. It's a trade-off. From a customer service point of view, of course, I'd love to see the lower takeout. I'd love to see the extra prize. But you can also see how that player had you know, it wasn't based in nothing, what he was saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've played in quite a few tournaments in my day, and there's been a handful of times, if not more than that, where I've laid up for breakage. Like going into the last, like I just thought that the chalk was going to win, and I was just like, I could take the chalk and get the breakage, or, you know, play a horse that's probably not going to win and hope that I get the seat, and I'll just take the breakage. And so you want to keep it clean and fair and equal. So I get it. I absolutely get it.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, if I have my way, like if as a player, if I'm choosing to play or not play, at the beginning of the tournament, I'm always going to want the round up, the lower effective takeout. But, you know, you've got to have a policy that works in all situations. So I would not, as a disgruntled customer did, I would not put it down to greed. I think there is a logic, a definite logic behind it, and you know, I respect where they're coming from. And plus, if people are going to be mad at you either way, why not do the way that you're going to make a little bit more money?
Sorry, Scott Calder he texted us. I don't know if you saw it. He says it's a picture of me. He says, "What is this style? Chance the Rapper," and he's trying to get me.
I love the fact that Scott is so behind, he probably hasn't even heard the JK Got Rhymes story yet. In fact, Scott, when you come across the JK Got Rhymes story, do me a favor and note which episode it's from and what time in the episode, because I definitely want to put that on the 2018 Best Of. And speaking of which, we were promised, JK, that we were going to hear your hip-hop debut. Where's the recording? This would have been a perfect time to do it. You could have done a little impromptu video and everything. Well, where's?
No, it's probably not appropriate. I've already had to wash my mouth out with soap the last 2 weeks. This one it wouldn't go well.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, what got into you between your little slip up on the show and then, like, you couldn't just tell that dude? I mean, that dude is not supposed to be a mope. He's like, you know, I've heard he's a nice dude. I've read a little of his writing. He seems all right. You just got to go straight for the jugular with the dirty language, huh?
Yeah, I got to do better than that. But I didn't delete it because I already said it. But it's a tactic that I have to improve upon, and I will. I'll improve. And here's the worst part about it, Pete. You see me with my son. I don't curse in front of my son, like ever. Like it doesn't. I don't slip at all. And so it's not that I can't control myself. It's just, anyways.
That's pretty funny. Well, I will say this. I did, as much as I said nice things about that gentleman, I didn't see the point. I didn't see the point at all. I mean, the whole concept, and granted, you should have said partners, not investors. I think it would have been more accurate and made you sound like less of a windbag, both. But that aside, I mean, there are professional bettors who have investors. It's when you're gambling, one of the smartest things you can do is make sure you're properly capitalized for whatever it is you're doing. And especially when you're doing high-risk bets like the pick 4 or pick 6, you could be like the greatest horizontal bettor. You could be a genius at writing bets and have a really good handicapping opinion, and you could still go a month without hitting a bet. They're very difficult to hit, especially when you're getting down into, like a $2 pick 6 situation. But really, all those bets, it's high risk, high reward, and it's just smart. It doesn't sound like this was the situation last Sunday, but just in general, it's just a smart thing to bring in a little bit of other people's money. And yeah, and I totally respect, it'd be fine, I guess, if somebody wanted to take a commission for the extra effort that they did or whatever. But, that aside, I don't think that's your usual MO. It's just a fun and potentially profitable way to hang with your friends, too. So anyway, I don't understand that part. That was a little bit off the rails, and it sounds like we can look forward to a different style of response from you in the future.
Oh, I'm not going to be nicer next time. I just probably won't. I just won't curse.
I didn't say nice. I said a different type of response.
Yes, a different type of response, for sure. For sure.
And you also made the great point that it's just like probably... I don't really get in Twitter things. Once in a blue moon, I do. I guess I do, but not very often. You a little bit more than me, but you don't really either. But there's a really good reason to not mess with either of us on Twitter. Do you want to remind people?
Yeah, it's like look, man, I mean, I'm sure he's got a lot of followers. I don't even have that many followers, but I have a podcast and I have an hour where I can explain myself. So if I say something bad, I can admit that I was wrong, and then I don't look like such a dummy. So, I regret one word in that whole thing. The rest of it was all right.
I don't disagree. And yeah, I mean, we could just come on here and troll you back for an hour. In the case of today, an hour and 15 minutes. All right, we've got about 30 minutes left in this special edition of the DRF Players Podcast. I'll admit I've not gotten to do the races as fully as I wanted to. I'm just going to admit that. But I did have a few thoughts on the racing, the stakes racing at Gulfstream and Santa Anita tomorrow. All 6 of the races we're going to be talking about are part of the World Championship of Handicapping. Why don't we start things off, JK, at Gulfstream? We'll do the 3 Gulfstream and then the 3 Santa, even though I don't think that's correct chronologically. And we can talk about these races. You have a chance to look at them all?
Yeah, I actually did a pick 3 for out of the gate using the 3 stakes races at Gulfstream. So,
oh, perfect.
Yeah, I could talk about that one for sure. Miss Momentum makes a little bit of sense just based off of her last 2 races. Obviously you have to look in that direction. I haven't looked up the Cassie stats on the dirt at Gulfstream this year, but I know in the past they have not been ideal. And so, obviously tread lightly there as a horse that I feel like you have to use. But I kind of was leaning towards the 8, My Miss Lily. Mark Hennig's had a lot of good 2-year-olds. He had that good 2-year-old Cachet that won on the undercard of Pegasus Day. The horse broke his maiden in the slot with a 102 figure. It's drawn outside. Should improve off of that. And so I think the 3 horses that I used were the 6, 7, and the 8. I'm against Heaven Has My Nikki. Really cool story, obviously, with the name named after Ron Palucci's daughter. But the horse was down on the inside that day, and I think that's kind of where you wanted to be. Didn't get a particularly fast figure, and so I'm going to stick with the 3 horses on the outside. In the contest, I'd probably be looking to take the 6 or the 8, depending on the price.
Yeah, I like the 8, My Miss Lily here. Didn't break great, really, that day, I didn't think. It was a day where the money showed in the kind of old school hands where I could see improvement coming in the second race. You know, it's not going to be necessarily easy to get the lead and clear here, but I do think the distance is going to be her friend as well, and that's where my money was going to land. I thought it was worth, especially in a contest, super duper worth taking on Miss Momentum, just, you know, closer who doesn't have like the greatest finishing kick really for a closer, in my opinion, and will just prove me wrong at a short price in a contest scenario. If you were leaning between the 6 and the 8 for contest purposes, and you were going to do this World Championship of Handicapping as an all-in, gun to your head, which way do you go, the 6 or the 8?
Probably the 8, drawn outside Javier. You know, if Violent Times is forward, then my Miss Lily will get the trip right off of her. So just based on a trip situation, that's the one that I would want. But it's, you know, I'd be indifferent if one of them. But the chances are, like, my Miss Lily could get bet down. You know, the workout report is going to be important on those two. If it comes back strong on one or the other, the DRF workout report, one of those horses could lean in a different direction. So it just depends. If one of them gets overbet, then I'd go with the other one. But as of right now, my Miss Lily.
All right, let's move on to race 11. I think we'll do just what you did there, JK. Talk about it first, the Dania Beach, from a parlay horizontal standpoint, and then let's talk about it from a contest standpoint as you see the field up there on the screen.
Yeah, you know, we usually try not to give away the out of the gate situation, but if you've spent this whole hour and 15 with us, you deserve the pick ticket. I use the 6, the 7, the 8, and the 9. Obviously, Untamed Domain was a horse that we talked about on our Breeders' Cup Marathon show that we did with our crew and also with Matt Bernier. And Untamed Domain was 12-1 that day and ran huge. A lot to do with 7 wide going, you know, turning for home and couldn't quite get to Mendelssohn. But definitely ran well, is back here now in this spot, which you would assume is an easier spot. Cool to see a son out of Animal Kingdom as well. So I use that horse. That horse is probably the most likely winner in a tournament setting. I'm going to let that horse protect me. If he wins at 8-5 or 6-5 or 4-5, then no problems there. I'm cool with that. He's not the kind of favorite that I'll play in a contest like this. I'll let him protect me. The 7 for Todd stretching out is interesting. It's a Frankel horse, got a really big figure last time. Todd's one of those guys, when he stretches him out, you don't typically worry about that. He's not a young trainer with no experience that doesn't know what he's looking at when it comes to those situations. I thought the 8 and the 9 were interesting. We highlighted, Craig and I, because Craig was helping, obviously, producer Craig, we highlighted the 8 and the 9 from a Timeform US standpoint. One of the things we talk about all the time on this show is they were horses that were closing into blue fractions on Timeform US, and so those are turf horses that I can't leave off of tickets because I think that those are the kind of the hidden trips. And not everybody sees that when horses are wide or get checked or steady or miss the break or whatever. A lot of people see that. I think a lot of times they miss that. So in a contest setting, it's going to be one of those two for me, the 8 or the 9, just depending on the price, depending on the workout reports. But all 4 of them in the pick 3.
Channel Cat looks real good to me. I thought, you know, obviously nothing against Untamed Domain, and the form of the juvenile also seems to be working out pretty well. And there was just the merits are just so obvious, and it's a race that feels like just not this specific race, but any young horses turf stake. It doesn't feel like the race where you want to take that 8-5 and go on with life in a contest setting. So that was my only reason to get off on Untamed Domain. I would happily press in the picks, but for contest, Channel Cat just looks very interesting. Just has a good closing kick. It's not a great post. My only other thought on Channel Cat, if Channel Cat is a little flat, this could be a horse that wants more ground. Just something vibes that way to me a little bit. But I would certainly take a shot in the context of a contest tomorrow. with that
and,
one.
and I love horses like this that you know, being up there as much as you're up there, you understand how this works. But when a horse gets bet like that at Saratoga, there's usually some good buzz, some good activity in the morning. I think up there more than anything, and the word spreads pretty quick. And so I like to see when horses are bet at Saratoga, shows a little bit of class, or at least expectation for class.
Yeah, I think that's a totally fair point. Look who we have now, JK, leaping to the front in this last chance. He's probably listening. Garrett Skiba going runner to get things started off. He'd be a force to be reckoned with in this thing should he go ahead and be one of the 6 players to move on. We've also got the Undertaker, Stephen Thompson's name up there. Mark Holmes, a name I've seen a lot, but I don't know as well. Who else you see? Oh,
all ones? Does he have all? Is it all the ones?
Craig, let's please click on number 7, Anthony Robb, Hurricane Anthony Robb, and see. No, it was a 9, and he actually has played. He hasn't played a 1 yet. He's played different numbers in each of these. This is an all-in contest. He got a couple of 1s in there, but that's it. Not playing all the 1s. Anthony Robb, aka Tony Gold, a.k.a. Hurricane Anthony. I actually snuck a mention of him into the preview story, suggesting that the all-the-ones strategy might not be the best move in the WCH itself, because I had noticed that he had bought his way in. But I
noticed Chris Felica as well.
Chris Felica up there, the Bear. Folks know him from ESPN College Game Day. Another guy who will be out in Vegas. Did he tell you his Las Vegas story for next weekend?
No, he said we'd see him, but he didn't. I don't think he told me what's he got going on.
It's his wedding anniversary. And he's still coming. So more power to him. But I don't think he won't be coming out on Tuesday like us degenerates to Vegas. I think he'll swoop in for the contest and then swoop right out. And I'm sure the next weekend he'll be renting a palatial manor somewhere to try to get out of the doghouse.
Oh, that's interesting.
You gotta love horse players. A little bit easier to play from home in the World Championship of Handicapping, isn't it? So we'll hopefully see him in there. He's won 1, and so he's looking to get a second to back things up. And Tony Gold, Anthony Robb, he's bought 1 too. So that's interesting. Let me ask you that question. How big of an advantage do you feel like it would be to bring multiple entries to this WCH format?
No, I think it's always an advantage. Some people don't handle it as well as others. I think that you have to have you can't have a set strategy. It's not like when I first started playing contests, I heard a couple people say, when you have 2 entries, you pick different horses until one of them hits, and then that's your good one. And then I've heard, other people that just say you just do the same on each, and then you split when you have to. And I'm more of a do the same on each and split when you have to, but there's some days where I'll just zig and zag and zig and zag. It just depends on what the card gives you, and I think that it definitely is an advantage. And one of my favorite things to do in contest is to qualify 1 and then buy 1, because you're getting that huge edge for such a discount. And then the other way around as well is to know you're going to buy 1 and then try to qualify that second one, like some of the guys are doing today.
I like the way you talk about it, where it borrows, to me, what you're saying, reading between the lines a little, you're borrowing a little bit from multi-race strategy. And if you have an A-type horse, by all means, go ahead and play it on both, especially if there's a situation where you have a lone A. But if you're in a situation where you're just sort of against some horses at the top of the market, but you don't know which long shot or mid-price is going to win, that's a good opportunity to go ahead and split those entries up. And that's not just for the World Championship of Handicapping, it's for any contest, and it would work in the live format or the all-in format. Yes?
One of the worst things that can happen in a contest is when you're deciding between 2 horses and you pick one and the other one wins. So if you can have 2 entries and you can be in that exact same position and you got $40 on one and $40 on the other, and you get to use both, it's a remarkable edge, and it's one of my favorite positions to try to be in. So
I like it, and it explains why we're seeing so many people who've already qualified in this last chance. We'll see 6 of them advance along the way. Definitely an impressive amount of participation. this last chance event, and makes me wonder if we won't see some. I mean, obviously some of it's because it's the last chance, but some of it's probably lower price point. Wonder if we'll see some more games at that price point in the coming year when we get to, I know I'm getting ahead of the game a little bit here, but when we get to the 2019 World Championship of Handicapping, something to out for. All right, let's go back to the races. Let's talk about the Holy Bull, JK. I got one in here I like a lot. I bet you like the same horse.
Yeah, I singled Tis Mischief.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so we're not on the same horse.
Yeah, you know, and it's hard for me too because, I said, and I don't even know if I said it very well, so this will be my opportunity to say it better on out of the gate. I'm not crazy about the fact that the horse kind of had an inside. Was, you know, when they came off the turn, he went inside and Enticed went outside. So arguably, Enticed kind of had the worst trip because he lost that ground. But I just think Tis Mischief is really good. I think he's going in the right direction. I think that Dale Romans really can get a horse to improve and it can keep moving in the right direction. I know that actually yesterday I was trying to watch the replay, and I stumbled across this kind of like behind the scenes video where Robbie Alvarado was talking about Tis Mischief, and he was speaking with a lot of confidence about the horse and how good he's going to be and how good he should go on to be. And you know, I'll be interested to see what the workout report says, but from all accounts, the horse is working forwardly, and so. That's where I landed. I singled there. I completely understand that there's a lot of other horses that could win the race. I mean, I think you obviously have to fear Enticed, who's drawn inside. Free Drop Billy can absolutely win. He's a grade 1 winner. Tis Mischief, obviously, who I mentioned. The horse on the outside, Mississippi, is another one that potentially could run well. So Hollywood Star even for Dale Romans and the Albaugh family. I mean, how many good horses have they bought over the last few years? But for me, I think there's a little bit of value to take a bit of a stand here, and I'm going to do that with Tis Mischief. There's no question, no matter what the price is, that's who I'll use.
That's interesting. Free Drop Billy for me here. I mean, just another one of these horses who was stuck down inside Breeders' Cup weekend. We've seen them pretty much all come back and run better, and this one had shown such talent. Appears to be working well. Will be interesting to see what the DRF workout report has there. But there's a lot to like, and I hope that the 6-1 is right, or the numbers maybe a little bit under that, just to indicate some liveness and some readiness based on those workouts. But I was surprised you didn't just take the track bias angle back with Free Drop Billy, or at least elevate him over some of your other secondary contenders.
I wasn't crazy about Free Drop Billy and the Breeders' Futurity, and I remember that race kind of fell apart. There was obviously the unfortunate situation in that race with the spill, and I just not a huge fan. And I mean, I think the horse is going to improve, and if that horse shows up at the Derby, if he runs second here and somehow finds his way into the Derby gate, he'll be my Dale Romans horse that I'll pick to run third or fourth without a doubt, because I always pick one of those. So. I'm not disrespecting the horse. I prefer Tis Mischief in here.
Fair enough. We'll learn a lot more. It's an interesting running of the Holy Bull, and we'll be tuning in and obviously going to play a key role in what happens, one of the 15 races in the first round of the World Championship of Handicapping on Saturday. Let's go out west, JK, and let's talk about the Lewis. This was one that I just felt like I didn't have the time to devote to do the job I could. The Gulfstream races stuff was like leaping off the page at me in a way where it really wasn't for the California races, especially for the Lewis. Well, the one thing that leaps off the page to me here was that this is a graded stake that's indistinguishable from a first level allowance.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one for me. I usually don't do this, and I think everyone knows I don't usually do this, but I'm going to have to be a little bit coy here because I actually like a price, and if I'm playing tomorrow morning for 6 figures, this horse is one of the horses why I think I might actually play, and so this race is tricky for me because where's the Baffert? Where's the Hollendorfer? It's like I guess there actually is a Hollendorfer, but
Shiver Me Timbers.
Yeah, I don't like that horse. And so look, it's going to be interesting. Timeform says that the pace should kind of cook up a little bit. So I would probably try to look for something with these young horses that's going to be finishing. Look for some horses with, like Craig talked about last time on Timeform US, you can kind of hit those running styles and see who can come running late. The two inside horses look like two that they could pick up pieces late. I also want to follow the riders a little bit here. Follow the riders like Mike Smith. These guys are trying to get Derby mounts, and last week we heard that Javier Castellano was jumping to Bolt Doro, and a lot of people said, well, what about Mask? And then a few days later we hear that Mask has had some setbacks. So these 3-year-old races can be a little bit tricky, but forgive me if I keep this one a little bit close to the vest.
You never do. I want to give you a hard time, but I'm thinking back to the years we've been doing the show, and you never do that, so I'm going to give you one. But I will say this. If you weasel out and don't play in the contest tomorrow, you better be tweeting a full analysis, yes?
I promise I'll tweet it.
You promise?
I promise.
Yeah, my only inclination is I would look towards the longer end of the odds spectrum here. I mean, I hear what you're saying about Smith, but I mean, I don't know. And I love Mandela, but this horse to me, based on the connections, is likely to take more play than I feel like the overall form, to my opinion, deserves. So I'd go in a different direction, especially talking contest here, more so than verticals. And yeah, I mean, obvious merits for Shiver Me Timbers, but again, not necessarily one I'm looking to take at a short price. So yeah, I'm curious to see what you say, and I'm going to grind on it a little more. And I do promise, if I come up with anything interesting, I will send out a thought via Twitter as well. Maybe we'll get that conversation going tomorrow. Meanwhile, we're not going to talk about the 6th, but we will move right on to the 7th, the San Marcos. Did you have a view in this race?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those races where I was wrong last time, and when I'm wrong the time before, then I usually will respect the horse now. And I didn't think It's in the Post wanted to go 1 mile and an 1/8 last time. I thought that horse wanted longer, and he won that race pretty easily. So I would think that It's in the Post is going to be pretty tough in this spot. Depending on where I am position-wise, if I'm playing, I will take the short price horse to help get me to the cut. If not, there's a horse like Isotherm who I think D'Amato is still trying to figure out. I think George Weaver's obviously just as capable, so I don't expect the horse to move up. It's more of the horse coming from the East Coast to the West Coast. And so I think that It's in the Post is probably the most likely winner. But Isotherm is one that I would probably consider, depending on where I was in the contest or what kind of bet I was making.
It's in the Post has really earned my respect. When I had the pleasure of co-hosting Out of the Gate a few weeks ago, Dan Illman made the case that he thought that the San Gabriel win was going to be the first in a streak, and I don't have any reason really to disagree with that. And I agree with you, JK, that the extra distance is only going to help that one. He looks awful tough to me, compared to Isotherm, who I just don't know. I don't know what's left in the tank. Kind of a cool horse, has ability, but we'll see. It's in the Post if you force me to make a pick from here. And now we're back looking at the leaderboard here. Mark Aylward, or maybe Aylward. I'm sorry, Mark. I know I've interviewed you at least over email, putting together 2 pretty big prices there. That's a nice hand a couple of races into this contest to be on 65-20. Definitely drawing very live to win that $5,000 seat to the World Championship of Handicapping. Joel Winkowski started well and then picked up that winner at Gulfstream as well to move the score up. Anthony Trezza, the man they call Doczilla, in nice position, getting on the board early and then backing it up with the big price there. And then I think it looks like Frank Sorensen in the mix. Good to see. Frank is a friend and a colleague of sorts of my brother Steven with the NYPD. Good to see his name up there. And then we've got Garrett Skiba, who we mentioned before, off to that big start. Would have to be considered a very big threat should he go forward. He's had more success in live bankroll contests than just about everybody. And then scrolling down, you can see a lot of familiar names. Very notably there, did you see JK Gary Blair had the big long shot on 2 tickets. So that's kind of an enviable position to be in there. But a lot of people drawing live with those 2 prices coming in early. it's definitely going to be fun to see how this one plays out as we advance towards the end of the card, and we'll see 6 players go on to the WCH. You notice anything else interesting there on the leaderboard for a quick look?
No, I didn't. You pretty much nailed them all.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, I mean, who's if you were in that position, where would you rather be right now? 1 entry in qualifying position, or like the fellow I highlighted with the 10th and 11th, but with 35 on each one from here, with however many races to go.
Remind me what 5th place had.
We'd have to go back and look, to be honest, but I think it's probably around 40. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I would definitely want to be in the spot with 2 entries in the 30s.
Yeah, the lot, and we can see what Gary Blair played. Actually, it might be kind of interesting just to take a quick look and see how the 2 entries split from here, Craig. If you click on View Details for Gary Blair down in 13th, we can take a quick look at 13th and 14th and see. We'd have to take notes here.
838-7537. 838-7537. 838-7537. 838-7537. Quite different.
75775. Yeah, but there's only a few, only a little bit of overlap. So that's interesting. You'd almost prefer to see, you'd like to see a little more coordination, maybe. But I mean, it all depends on the opinion. I mean, I just think it's very hard in an all-in game to play absolutely different at a certain point, because it just feels at that point like you're when you can't switch the picks around, like you're relying on an extra degree of randomness as to 2 chances are better than 1, of course, but you still could end up splitting and getting yourself in a bit of a jackpot. Right. Well, and I guess he does, to be fair, have 2 chances to do that. But how often do you see he'll get the win on one, a nice win on one that leaves just short, and a nice win on the other that leaves just short? That's the tricky part. Not trying to wish any ill on Gary. We'll have to follow that story as it goes. But it does seem like that potential recipe for split ticketitis happening there. All right, JK, just a few minutes left on today's show. We still have the San Pasquale to talk about. Return to the races of our old buddy Moob Tahij, who we picked, and then was such a controversy on Twitter that people were quitting the game because he won. I still haven't figured that one out.
If he's working well, he's going to be bet. So you're going to want to hope for some maybe B minuses, some Bs, just to know he's going in the right direction, and hope that this mile on 8th is what he wants. Maybe he's the new version of Opportunity. And then top of the game is another one that I want. They tried the turf last time. I actually bet him in that turf race, and he clearly didn't handle it. And I'd expect to see him run back to his race in the native diver, the native diver when he ran a 124 figure, and I'd like to see tough trip too. So see him there.
You caught the owner on Irish Freedom, didn't you?
I did. That's why I'm using him. And I'm sure Elliot's going to have him on all 3 entries.
Elliot Honecker, who's got a strong hand at the World Championship of Handicapping, and this is one of the horses he owns through Donegal Racing. JK's great nemesis, Elliot-owned horses have knocked both of us, really. I always like to pin this on you, but it's really been just as painful for me. But then, of course, Elliot pulled the best trick of all when we did the Outplay JK show last year, and Elliot went ahead and win that just to give JK another virtual pie in the face. So Elliot will be rooting for you and watching you very closely in the WCH and rooting for you out at Santa Anita with Irish Freedom as well. That's a race I just haven't done enough on to even make a comment, but I am very interested in what you said, JK, about Irish Freedom being the new opportunity. I think his owners would be quite happy with that type of multi-million-dollar winning performance, don't you?
Yeah, what a fun horse he was. You look at his PPs, and he's fun. Hopefully we'll see him in Dubai one more time.
All right, good stuff. We got a couple of minutes left on the show. I wonder if we can get one more race in to take one more look at the leaderboard. Not sure if we're going to have time for that. We had some other questions come in. One of them related, and hey, it's been a whole almost 90-minute podcast here without mentioning Mike Maloney. So if we have a question related to Mike's book, Betting with an Edge, a listener, Drew, who's asked many good questions over the months and that we've been doing the show about betting strategy. He took a long look at his numbers for 2017 and saw that he was doing very well in the exacta pool and the pick four pools, and had a lot of money bloodletting in other places, and was talking about the idea of trying to focus more on those pools, and in terms of keeping action bet concept alive, but doing it all in the exacta pool where he did better, and just trying to dramatically reduce the handle on those action bets as opposed to the prime bets. I mean, to me, that all sounds great. To me, that's exactly what you should be doing, letting your results help you make better decisions as a horse player. And I think leaning more on the exacta makes a lot of sense. Again, just lower degree of difficulty. We were talking before about the kind of streaks negative you can go on in a bet like the pick four. And the pick four, I guess a little bit depends on how capitalized you are, but you need a lot of money if you're going to be making runs at the pick four on a regular basis. Maybe save those for when your opinion dictates it, and spend more time in the exacta pool and see if those results continue. For you, JK, when you look back at your 2017, where was your success, and what do you think of this type of exercise of handicapping yourself?
Yeah, no, I think handicapping yourself is super important. My success, like randomly, the last couple of years has been like in the pick six pool. I wouldn't like recommend that for most people. It just so happens the way that it has been the last couple. But I also do really well in doubles and pick threes, not so much pick fours. I think one of the things that helps a lot with the exacta, and Drew, if you spend more money in that pool, in the exacta pool, I think you'll find out is you can understand where you're at because of the probables. In the pick four, it's a blind bet. I mean, you're going into it not really knowing how much you should bet on that combination or how much you should bet on this one, because you don't really know what it's going to pay. And so I think that's one of the big differences with the exacta is well, it could change, but you have a very good idea of what it's going to pay, and you can build really smart, intelligent wagers based around that. And I think that could be even another aspect you could add to your game that would make that exacta pool even more rewarding for you.
You were raving the other day about that ticket maker app for the exacta, JK, and we'll have to do something more with that, because I honestly don't know too much about it. Everybody knows ticket maker for horizontals, but this idea of using ticket maker to sharpen up the vertical pools, that's a very cool idea. Yeah, for me, my analysis of last year was it was kind of humiliating, because my success came down to 3 bets. Like 3 big bets. And it's funny you mentioned about the pick six. 2 of them were pick sixes. And it just, because I know how much variance is in that bet, that's what was so sort of horrifying about it, was I felt like seeing that and having success in the pick six above other things, it made me feel lucky. Just knowing how hard, it's not like you can count on making your money every year from the pick six, in my opinion. I don't know what to do with the information yet. I've not gotten my handle ramped back up to anything significant. Since the sort of time chilling more or less since the Breeders' Cup. But I'm, as I ramp back up, it's something I want to talk to you more about, and we might as well do it on air because people love this betting strategy stuff. But I'm just trying to find a smart way to ramp the handle back up without spending money in pools where I haven't been doing all that well, despite my predisposed ideas about wanting to play in those pools.
Yeah, I think you've had some ideas, and we can obviously elaborate on it. They're pretty good. The idea about stakes, the races that matter to breeders, stakes races, allowance races, maiden races. So I think those are ways that you can focus. And we've had this conversation before. If you're one of those guys who wants to get more involved from a trip-taking standpoint or a figure-making standpoint or a bias standpoint, one of the best ways to do it is to find a group of races that you're interested in. Don't do the 16 claimers. That can be tiresome and tedious. But maybe if you just do the stakes races and you do the allowance races and you do the maiden races, especially leading up to the Derby Trail.
That's great advice. Derby Trail is a perfect way to do it. So much attention in the sport, and you'll get to bet into those big pools that tend to have some inefficiencies. All right, do you have time for a final thought, or do you have anything to say for a final thought before we get out of here?
Good luck tomorrow, unless I'm playing.
They can always run second. Have you ever seen this shirt? There's a great shirt Larry Bird wore. Remember, you're too young. I mean, you know who Larry Bird is, but did you really watch him?
No, I mean, I played the game Magic versus Bird on Sega Genesis, though.
That was an awesome game. Well, Bird, you every year used to win the 3-point shooting contest. And one year he showed up, I think after winning it 2 years in a row, the third year he showed up with a green T-shirt, and it said, "Who's playing for second?" on it.
Wow.
Pretty gangster, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna wear that. I'm gonna wear that to out to Vegas next week.
Well, once you start paying back your debts to me, I'll buy it for you as a gift. How about that? All right, that's all we got. Larry Bird gets a call on the podcast. One other quick trivia point about Doczilla, Dr. Anthony Trezor, who's doing so well on DRFT. Producer AJ's eye doctor. Did you know that, JK?
No, I didn't. I had no idea. Yeah, that is hilarious.
He's right there, hanging in there in third. Doczilla. All right, that's all the time we have on this special edition of the DRF Players Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks to producer AJ and producer Craig. Thanks to Willie Nile for providing our theme song. You can catch more of his music at willienile.com. Thanks to Travis Stone, the voice of the Kentucky Derby, for his top-notch voiceover. And thanks most of all to all of you for watching and listening. We will be back on Tuesday. You can follow my coverage of the WCH all weekend long on DRF Live. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.